Focus, keeping your eye on the objective, paying attention to the details, mind on the mission, things that come naturally to those who serve. But it's easy to lose that focus when you transition and the mission is not as clear. Stay with us as we talk with veterans who are finding that focus. Tonight, we explore the world of veteran referees and archers. Welcome to Veterans Voices. I am Erin Esquer, and tonight we will be talking with organizations that are helping veterans that find focus after their transition. A little later in the show, but we'll be talking with veterans transitioning to careers as referees. But first, we will look at veterans competing in the sport of archery. If you're watching live, we want you to be a part of this conversation, so please call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message at Veterans Voices 1 through Facebook, or email us veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you and have you be a part of tonight's conversation. My co-host tonight is Army veteran Stephen Burchick in studio, and our first guests are from USA Adaptive Archery. Please welcome Adaptive Archery coach Jonathan Clemens and veteran archers Jason Tabansky and Leah Coriel to the show. Thank you guys for coming on today. We are excited to have this conversation with you all and talk all things archery for this first segment. So please, first, we'd like to go ahead and highlight the fact that we actually do have some veterans with us. So we'll start with you, Jason. Tell us a little bit about your military career.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for having us. I'm from good old Texas. I enlisted right after high school back in 2001. So I served in Army aviation from 2001 until I got injured in service in 2015. I was a CH-47 helicopter flight engineer. I think you guys got a couple pictures of me flying and possibly one of me out in Afghanistan. But yeah, no, after my injury, I discovered the world of adaptive archery, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro, and thank you for your service. Now we'd like to kind of punt it off to you, Leah, and let us know a little bit about your service.
Okay, I, like Jason, I'm actually old enough to be Jason's mother. I joined the military in the early 80s, right out of high school as well. So I served 4 decades ago. I was possibly the Army's worst truck driver ever. So that's like the epitome of my military career. Most of my military interaction has come as an educator, as an adult. I am also, so I worked with student veterans at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I have my master's in adult education. I'm working on my PhD in cognition and learning after combat. So I've worked a lot, with the psyche, with learning, with what comes next after you get out of the military. I am also the mother of a 25-year-old. He was an airborne combat medic with the 101st Airborne. So I've seen it from both sides. So that's where my transition experience has come from, both as an educator, a teacher, a leader, and as a parent.
Oh, wow. You've definitely covered all bases there. So that is awesome. I know good Stephen here as our resident Army veteran can certainly relate. So Jonathan, we want to welcome you to the show because you have a special role in this, and we'd love for you to go ahead and explain who you are to us.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Clemens. I am USA Archery's Paralympic head coach. I'm located in Kentucky right now. I travel around a little bit to everywhere, coaching the sport that I love. I love helping people, and this gives me the great opportunity to do that.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your appearance on today's show, and we're getting ready to hear how you are connected with the two folks that just introduced themselves. So, Steve, I'm going to punt it off to you to get our conversation started. What do you have for us?
Basically, who can participate in adaptive archery? How do you qualify?
You got that, John?
Yeah, so I'll kick us off here. great thing about archery, and one of the great things I love about this sport, is it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, your ability or disability. There's a way that we can make it work for you.
So
Do you have different classifications or divisions for people?
Yeah, we do. Actually, Leah, if you want to kind of talk about that just a little bit, I think you're a good person to speak on that.
Okay, so I joined adaptive archery through some student veterans that were in my courses at the university that had amputations. So I had never considered myself an athlete. But in archery, we have different classes. So one of the classes is an open class, which is a W2 or somebody that can stand. But by standing, we're talking about, modifications, like they might sit on a stool, or they might lean on the stool, or, they might have a limb difference so that they might have like a board under one foot. But we have people on the United States Paralympic archery team who have no arms. We have a young lady that has no legs. We have lots of military vets with double amputations, or, an upper and a lower amputation. We have people with varying degrees of paralysis. Jason and I are both quads, which means I'm an incomplete quad. So that's impairments. We're W1 archers, which means we have impairments in all four extremities and in our core. We also have, there is an actual class. We have blind archers, and the top blind in all of these para classes, there is a U.S. athlete in the top 10 in the world in every single one of World Archery's classes, including visually impaired and blind archers. So Jonathan is absolutely head on. If you want to learn to shoot a bow, it is probably the most adaptable sport that I know of.
I'm pretty blown away by that, to be honest with you. I know we didn't really discuss that prior to us kind of getting the show together, but that is amazing. And, honestly, to kind of carry on with the fact that, this is open to anybody, no matter what, you may have, an inability to do, you can still be an archer. And I think that is super important to point out. And for you and Jason, we'll punt this off to Jason. I know you two, aren't you guys teammates in some way? I want to hear a little bit more about that.
We're neighbors, actually.
Yeah, we are. Although we're a little far away right now. Leah's on vacation in Wisconsin, but we actually both live here in Boerne, Texas. I came into archery through the VA. That's one thing that I love about this. It is so accessible to veterans because most VAs will have a recreational therapist that'll offer some kind of archery. And we have this wonderful thing every year called the National Veterans Wheelchair Games. So if you have any kind of disability that where you need to be in a chair, the National Veteran Wheelchair Games will have some kind of archery. But going back to Leah and I discovered archery and I started kind of meddling around a little bit with it. But in 2017, I decided I was going to go and try out for the U.S. para team and actually get classified. And I met Leah there. And it turns out that I got classified into the same division. And we kind of started shooting together in 2018 in the Czech Republic. And the rest was history after that.
And Jonathan came on board. I don't know if it was at the Czech either, but he came on as like a coach that was just willing to help the head coach at the time. And I remember him looking at us and go, "Who are you people? Who are you? What is up with it?" Because I think the veteran component in any adaptive sport leads the way, because that's what we know. Right? As veterans, that's what we know. You're a leader as soon as your little paws hit those yellow footprints in basic training, you become a leader and you don't leave anybody behind. And that flavor is in every single adaptive sport that I've ever been a participant in. And I think Jonathan has embraced that and like, okay, let's do this. Let's use what we have and move it forward.
So that actually is a pretty good point to bring up, the fact that, you guys have figured out a way to take this amazing adaptive sport, right? And you've taken this thing on the road, because you guys mentioned the Czech, right? But I know, Jonathan, where else have your archers been competing?
We've been to Dubai together. In fact, Leah won the Para World Championship in Dubai, and that was last February. She was one there. We've been to South America. We have some events coming up next year in Paris. So we travel around a little bit all over the world.
That's pretty amazing. Stephen, what you got for us?
Quick question. You mentioned involvement with the VA. If someone's interested in adaptive archery or even some of the other activities, does the VA automatically offer it to everyone, or does the veteran have a responsibility to seek it out?
Yeah.
So I would say it's a little bit of both. The VAs, there's multiple recreational therapists throughout the VAs. And in all honesty, mine went a little bit further before my recovery. I did my recovery at the VA, but before that, I was at Bethesda at Walter Reed, and there was an adaptive sports expo, and that's where I got exposed to all kinds of adaptive sports. It just so happened that one of my best friends had given me a bow in 2009, and here I am now going through a spinal cord rehab, and there's these two veterans. One was a Marine and the other one was Army, and they're talking about me going and doing archery. And I said, there's no way I can do it. I can't even, I have no balance. I'm going to fall over. And they said, no, we're going to teach you how to do it. And we were blessed with a fantastic sports rec here in San Antonio that just embraced us and taught us how to adapt, and then just kind of threw us out in the world and let us go do what we were going to do. So
there are other organizations, national organizations. I mean, Jason and I happen to be, rocking the wheelchair life, but you don't have to have a physical challenge to be involved in archery. So like Operation Enduring Warrior does a lot with veterans that are mobile, that just kind of need to get, like my son is very active in archery, and, to look at him, you wouldn't think, but he was, a very young 18-year-old combat medic in Afghanistan. So his challenges are different than mine, but they're no less. So some of those silent, invisible challenges that come from serving our country are being addressed by other organizations, not necessarily within the VA, but definitely within the archery community. Would you agree with that, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of organizations out there helping veterans get involved. In fact, almost each year, USA Archery opens up some applications for veterans to apply for grants. Typically, it's up to $1,000 equipment grant, as well as a $1,500 grant so that they can get to tournaments and taste the waters of competition just a little bit. Not everybody who picks up a bow and arrow is going to make the decision to become, an elite athlete like Jason or Leah. Maybe they just want to shoot in their backyard and have some fun recreationally. Just because you get involved doesn't mean that you have to become this serious competitor.
Well, that's actually pretty interesting to note too. Sorry, Steve, I'll let you go ahead and take this on. Just wanted to make that note there.
This is kind of a dumb question. I'm not an archer, but in terms of the equipment, the feathers on the arrows, are there different materials used for different targets or different preferences?
absolutely. You have everything from, like you said, actual feathers to composite materials where you have stuff made out of plastic, soft plastic, hard plastic. Got a little bit of everything for each discipline. We have outdoor archery, which is what is shown in the Olympics and Paralympics. There's indoor archery. There's 3D where you're shooting different courses in the woods, foam animals. There's all kinds of archery for everybody.
What's your favorite feather type material?
I go with just regular plastic.
Okay.
I feel like we're learning something new every day here. So Leah, one thing before we have to go into a break, you had mentioned just kind of briefly when we were chit-chatting before the show, but you mentioned an all-female veterans group, I believe, that you have some connection with. You'd like to go ahead and just kind of highlight that as well.
It's called Pink Beret Archery, and it's from an organization that began from working with women who have PTSD from MST, military sexual assault, anything, but their injuries or their challenges are invisible. And I met them because I did a little archery thing, and they're like, we want to learn archery, we want to learn archery. And it just has taken off with the female population. They're just like, I want to learn how to do this. It's empowering for them. It's quick. It's easy to see success. It has absolutely taken off. So I've probably got, it's a nationwide club now. So there's probably 60 women in Pink Beret Archery and growing every minute. But, when we talk about, referees, and Jonathan and I were talking earlier, there are many archers that are, we call them judges, not referees, that because it is a part of who we are and our identity as veterans. We also have many, so the Pink Beret women, it's mandatory that they become level 1 and 2 coaches, because you have to give back, you have to have skin in the game. As veterans, we know that you have to have a reason, and it's always better to give back, because it's self-esteem, identity, accountability, it checks all the boxes. Referees are the same thing, judges, whatever you want to call them. By giving back, it builds our community as veterans to be seen as something other than broken.
That is awesome. I'm glad you made the connection there between serving previously, having that military service background,
Yes.
and how you can give back to the community by way of coaching, by way of becoming an archer, by way of getting into sports and leading in those ways. So thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for coming on today. These were very inspirational stories that you shared with us. When we return, we'll have an in-depth conversation with 2 organizations that train veterans to be professional referees. Right now, let's take a look at our vet on the street, Stephen Burchick, as he asks veterans about appreciation to service.
Welcome. I'm Steve Burchick, and our segment today is Vet on the Street. We're here at the Crockett Community Center, where people are walking across the Carquinez Bridge as part of the Walk of Honor on Armed Forces Day. Our question today is, do you think Americans appreciate the sacrifices of veterans?
Good morning. My name is Michael Slattengren. I served in the United States Navy from 1965 to 1970. And yes, in our current environment, I think people in the United States do support our currently serving in military personnel, and for the sacrifices of being overseas away from the family. And also, I think people support the families that are left behind. In my opinion, I think that support for these people started probably around September 11th. Prior to that, maybe not so much support for the military, especially in the era that I served in, Vietnam. We were not appreciated. But now I think there is a lot of patriotism in our country and support for our military personnel.
Hey, my name is Earl Brown. I served in the Air Force from 1968 to 1973. Yes, I do believe most Americans appreciate the sacrifices that veterans make. There's very few that I've ever met that didn't.
My name is James Lyons. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran from Richmond, California. And yes, I do believe that Americans do appreciate the sacrifices that veterans have made. From businesses that offer veterans discounts to people acknowledging me when I wear Marine Corps veteran clothing, people thanking me, thanking my father, who is also a veteran. I definitely feel like Americans love, appreciate, and support veterans.
I'm Bill Gibson. I served with the 377th Artillery in Vietnam to December 68 to January 70. Do they appreciate the veterans? Some do, some don't. People are starting to realize what they serve or what it means to serve in the service, but only because our politics have gotten so bad.
Hello, Nicole Sirachi-Wen here, United States Marine Corps and U.S. Army vet. I think as a whole, more than half of Americans, I would say, probably appreciate veterans service. I think it unfortunately falls into the level of the cursory overview because it's really hard to understand the sacrifices if you haven't actually been in it. Ask anyone who's served or gone overseas. There's just a certain component that you just might not get. So while I think that the country as a whole, likes the idea of service and is appreciative of service members and veterans, there is a component missing to really understand that sacrifice unless you've been in it or you've been personally affected by someone who has served.
Jerry Littleton served in the Army from 65 through 67. I think they do when they think about it, but they often don't think about it.
We are talking about veterans as archers and referees, and as you can see, we've done a wardrobe change. If you're watching live, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you and have you be a part of this very, very exciting conversation. So now we want to introduce two organizations who train veterans to enter the world of professional referees. So please welcome Patty Harsh of Protect the Game and Mike Pereira of Battlefields to Ballfields, along with veteran referees Dave Duza and Andrew Buchek. Thank you guys for coming on. I was truly hoping to have a whistle to blow and just get this party started, but I wasn't able to make that happen as quickly. So I will let you guys kind of start the show and talk about your service first. So we'll start with you, Andrew.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm coming from Charleston, South Carolina, originally from, Buffalo, New York. United States Marine Corps veteran. I did 5 years, 3 deployments. And after my 3rd deployment, I decided to get out and use my GI Bill. I went back to school. I was lucky enough to play college football, where I played for 4 years. After I was finished, I was still looking for something to do as far as like being involved with the sport. And that's when I seen an advertisement that Mike on the TV talking about his great program, Battlefields to Ballfields. And I couldn't email him fast enough to get going with it.
Thank you so much for that intro and for your service. One thing I forgot to point out earlier in the show, but I'll go ahead and highlight it now since you mentioned where you're located. We here at Veterans Voices are a national show, and we've got folks that are not only live on set in our California studio, but we've got folks tuning in from all over the place. So thank you for whatever coast you're on, whatever ocean you're in the middle of, like me here in Hawaii. We are appreciative of you tuning in with us this evening. So Dave, I want to hear from you about your service and your connection to being a referee.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us on. I am coming to you from Longmont, Colorado. It is one of the northern suburbs of Denver. So about 20 minutes north of downtown Denver. I went ROTC through college, so I was fortunate enough to receive a 3-year Army scholarship. Went to the University of Memphis, graduated in 1993. Started actually umpiring in 1993 as a way just to earn a little bit of extra money through college. But throughout completing my service obligation, I was stationed in Arizona, Texas, and then that's what brought me to Colorado. Had dabbled in officiating while I was still on active duty and everything else. Couple of pictures there up on the screen that's current. But got off active duty, ended up joining and finishing my time in the reserves. So I have actually spent time out at Pearl Harbor. So very jealous of where you're sitting right now. Miss those times out at Hickam and Makalapa and some of the other places out there. But it came across Patty Harsh's organization in 2019. As a matter of fact, when they put the call out to figure out how to do a better job of recruiting officials to get involved in the baseball and softball community here in Colorado. And since I had never really formally gone through anything other than OJT or what maybe a couple of mentors on the field had done, I decided I was going to show up to one of their clinics. And it turned out to be an absolutely amazing experience. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get into the segment and field some Q&As. But the opportunity space has given me an unbelievable set of opportunities that I would have probably never gotten otherwise. So extremely grateful for that. And I look forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. And we truly appreciate your service. And since you mentioned Patty, we'll just dive right into Miss Patty Harsh and talk about the organization that kind of got you started there, Dave. So Patty, we want to give you the floor, ma'am, to discuss who you are and a little bit about your organization.
Sounds great. Thanks, Aaron. And really nice wardrobe change. Good for you. We'll have to get you a chest protector and a helmet and some shin guards, though, and put you behind the plate. So I'm Patty, and it was great to hear from Dave beforehand because he was one of our original veterans who went through a training and certification and has gone on to do amazing work, not only in the state of Colorado, officiating, umpiring, actually, but travels to different parts of the country and officiates as well. But in any case, the organization actually was built in honor of my brother who served in Vietnam. He's a Marine. And later in life, suffered a life-threatening stroke. And those that came out to help me really bring my brother back to life and get him to the place that he needed to be were veterans. I also work for an organization called Triple Crown Sports based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, which is where I reside. And I'm in the HR, culture, learning and development realm and part of the leadership team there at the time, and had the opportunity to really dig into how I might be able to give back to veterans through that role, through our organization. And also, just we're noticing through running 125 sporting events through Triple Crown Sports across the country per year, on average of about 300 participants team-wise in our sports, there's a drastic shortage of officials going on across America. And so I thought, well, what if I could take and do a give back to the veterans through training, certifying, and equipping them at zero cost to them, and perhaps put them right to work at Triple Crown Sports once they get certified to be able to officiate games or any sporting or any sanctioning organization that might need officials. And then go ahead and also be an organization who might be offsetting this drastic shortage of officials in the country. So that came to fruition in 2019, had a bit of a stoppage due to COVID, but we are back going strong. In fact, certified 3 more baseball officials earlier this week in Omaha, Nebraska. And we're at about 200 veterans that have become officials, mostly softball, baseball right now, but we're open to training and certifying and equipping in all sports. And through this, met my good friend now, Mike Pereira, with Battlefields to Ballfields, and he'll be able to tell us a little bit about, I was providing gently used officiating equipment, and Mike called me one day and said, Patty, we got to get him in crisp, clean, new stuff. So that's where Mike comes in.
Well, let's talk to Mike, because you guys have a very similar organization going, and it's kind of neat that you guys collaborate the way that you do. So let's hand it off to Mike.
Yeah, I'm Mike Pereira. I live in Sacramento, California. And yeah, Patty and I are kindred spirits, quite frankly, because our thoughts are the same. Civilians who want to get more veterans involved in things. And so I just sit here and listen to even the archers talking, and thoughts come to my mind of how we can even get involved in that sport. And when you say, Leah said, we have judges and stuff. I mean, I would certainly love to have judges, archery judges, a part of our program. And she even said that you had blind archers, right? Which most people would say they'd make good referees, as a matter of fact. That's what the general public thinks. But I started Battlefields to Ballfields in 2017 after a thought process. I had met some homeless veterans in Southern California. I drove to Oregon I make myself a commitment to drive to Oregon, or at least a very lengthy drive, every summer without noise. No radio, no books on tapes, nothing. Once I get past Sacramento, I have 6.5 hours of silence, but it's not silence. It's not silence. It's just listening to what's going on in here. And after I met those homeless veterans, I was thinking about them and the fact that I didn't serve and what could I do? And then I started thinking about officiating, since I've been involved in that since 1970. And I thought, veterans, commitment, courage, teamwork, mission. And I'm thinking to myself, why, when I ran the NFL program, why didn't I get involved with more veterans? Because that's what you kind of look for. So I thought, could we develop a program that would pay the expenses for veterans to become sports officials in their communities, to get them back in their community, to help them integrate back in, to be role models, to be part of a team, an officiating team. And so I was pumping gas in a town called Weed, Oregon, and I'm liking my idea. It's actually Weed, California, I'm sorry, but I like my idea. And then somehow this thought came to me, the name, Battlefields to Ball Fields. And so we started it in 2017. The first week we had one application, I think, and now we have scholarshiped over 900 people in 38 different states in just about every sport there is. And while I have been fortunate to have my own life in football and broadcasting, none of it even comes close to what we're doing with Battlefields to Ball Fields. This is my mission in life, and one that I will work on until the day I can no longer work. So it's great to be a part of this discussion.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate you guys, for the veterans that are here on this platform, for those types of organizations that support the veteran population. So Steve, I'm getting ready to punt it off to you because I know you got some good questions that you want to get to with these veterans, these veteran referees, and those that are serving in the capacity of offering us these organizations. So Steve, take it away.
Yeah, I have one question that's in the back of my mind. You say there are shortages of, or a shortage of referees in a variety of sports. Is there one sport that is most difficult either to find referees for, or where the shortage is the greatest, and why is that?
Well, I'll start. I mean, I think it's basically all sports. And the thing is, you can find them. You can find people that, that will sign up. But the question is, how do you keep them? I mean, the sad part about officiating nowadays is that if all the people that sign up to become officials on the youth level, 30% of them only make it past 1 year. I mean, and they drop out. And the reason they drop out is sportsmanship. And quite frankly, if you ask these people when they leave, what's the worst group of people in terms of sportsmanship? Is it players? I mean, this is youth level. No. Is it coaches? No. Is it administrators? No. Is it parents? I mean, this is where we are in sports now, where parents are so invested in their kid and playing travel ball and all this stuff that they spend a lot of money and they all think their kid's going to be the next quarterback at Notre Dame. And so they are very abusive, both verbal and physical. And I think it's something that we need to address. Now, the interesting thing to me is, which I think speaks to you veterans, is the fact that 30% quit after 1 year of the general officiating population, 70% stay with it with our veterans. 70%. They obviously, Patty, they've taken worse abuse than they maybe take from a parent. But it is in all sports a real problem.
Yeah, and I agree with Mike. I think the way that to put it simply, I'm almost 100% positive that a veteran has seen much worse than a mad mom in the stands. However, it is the mad moms, not just to give moms a bad rap, sister, brother, uncle, grandpa, dad, whoever it may be. It's absolutely ludicrous. And I know that you're all seeing it on TV, social media, wherever it might be, in regards to the treatment of officials. And so, Steve, to answer your question, I agree with Mike as well on it's across the board. It's every sport. And, the average age of a baseball, softball official in America is 55 years old. And so what's happened is it's what, the younger people are seeing. They have no desire to come into the game and become an official, whether it be for the local league or whatever it is, because at all levels, the fans are just obnoxious and forcing people out of the game. You can't pay them enough to officiate.
But I will say,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We're going to get ready to go to break. So hold that thought. We will be talking with you guys a little bit more when we return, and we'll conclude our conversation with our veteran referees, but please stay with us. Fred Schobert Sr. was born on October 10th, 1924. He left his family's Pennsylvania farm and joined the Army in 1943 after graduating high school. He served with the 26th Yankee Division, 328th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Battalion, earning the Expert Infantry Badge, and later the Combat Infantry Badge for his participation in the Battle of Moncourt, France. He was awarded the Bronze Star in January of 1945 and was an infantryman assigned to the Ammunition and Pioneer Platoon. After his discharge in 1946, he used the GI Bill to graduate from Penn State University. He passed away on August 17, 2011. His family members remember him as a proud and good man who never expressed any hatred for the enemies he faced, saying instead they probably didn't want to be there any more than we did. We honor his service. So we're talking about veteran archers and referees this evening. And if you're watching live, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Please give us a call at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. So we want to continue this segment. I kind of want to punt it off to Andrew, though, because I do want to hear about your experience and just that transition from coming out of service and deciding to get tagged up and teamed up with these organizations, and now you are a referee. And I want to hear about your experience as a referee.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm now going into my third year as officiating. I think that the number one thing I took away from it was one of the more senior experienced officials always said there's three teams during the game. There's both teams that are competing, but then that last team is the officials. So we go out there and to be part of a team again and to work with other guys, whether it be officials or veterans or not, it completes you just to get back to the game that you love and just be part of the community again.
Absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Andrew. I just wanted to get back to Mike. You had something you wanted to cover just before the break and want to continue that thread.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that we need to promote the fact that we're getting more and more veterans to become officials. Because here in Sacramento, 2 years ago, a three-man officiating crew in a state playoff basketball game, to a pretty full crowd in Sacramento, they introduced the referees. John Brown, something, nobody said anything. Steve Jackson, nobody said anything. And then they said actually it was Army veteran such and such, and the crowd rose. They rose. And it's the image that we need, quite frankly, in officiating. And that's why I think it's so important we get more veterans involved.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too, because the fact that you guys have this availability and this ability to kind of transition veterans into these programs and do it without cost, that is very helpful, especially for your experience, Mike. As you said, you were encountering homeless vets, right? They just don't have a lot of resources to them, but good God, they possess all these qualities that are truly useful in the age and day of refereeing, and especially in a tough time like this when we talk about kind of the parental influence in sports and sportsmanship. So Dave, kind of
Yeah.
want to get you included in the conversation as well, and just kind of see what has been your experience now that you've transitioned into being an umpire, and just kind of what your experience has been.
It goes to a couple of things that Andrew and Mike and everybody has mentioned, right? The scrutiny in the day and age of everything's on video and things like that, right? Certainly come to the forefront and all the time. And you can look at a lot of statistics, Referee Magazine, the National Association of Sports Officials talking about the retention rates that Mike mentioned. And you'd ask yourself, okay, peel back the layer. Everybody thinks money's going to fix the issue and stuff like that, but it goes a little deeper, right? If you talk about what draws the attention to begin with, right? Having pride in the appearance when you step on the field, right? Having pride in being able to say, I'm trained, I know the rules, I'm going to do a good job. The more effective you are at presenting that outward appearance to a crowd, lowers the level of hostility before you ever get on the field, right? So if you show that you're competent and you show that you're trying, and what's preventing that from happening, right? It's people look at the upfront, umpire gear, right? A chest protector's $200, shin guards are $200, plate shoes are $200. You're $1,000 down on the baseball side of the house before you ever set foot and gather your first $65, $85, $105 paycheck, whatever that happens to be for a weekend. A lot of folks look at that and just say, oh my gosh, like I can't afford that out of pocket. Now you've got organizations, like Patty and Mike coming to the rescue and removing that, right? So any doubt that lingers to I have the skill set to do that. I've been through situations. I can deal with that, right? Hockey officials, archers, right? I mean, your bow is probably, 2 times what I just mentioned for plate gear, right? And things like that. But, as you get into those games, it all just adds up. So, having the folks that are out there recognizing that there are organizations trying to help that challenge, if you get folks trained and you get them confident in their abilities to step out on the field, the end result of that product will help reduce the amount of scrutiny that you get. And if you can show, again, a relationship with the players, a relationship to the coaches, you know how to handle that adversity, it tones down everything else. And if you can take that little bit to improve sportsmanship and be that calming presence, it's going to have the cyclical effect you'll get. And then you can discuss pay and things like that, because, the sincerity of somebody, you're going to realize really quick if somebody's just out there for the money, right? And you're certainly, unless you make the pro ranks, I certainly didn't join the organization and go through the training because I thought I was going to get rich, right? There's a great line in Moneyball, and I'm sure it comes from somewhere else, but right, it's the line that Brad Pitt starts saying, or maybe it's when he's being scouted right around the kitchen table. The game all has a way of telling you when you're done. You just don't know when that is. I never played beyond the high school level, but realized that had I decided to stay with it, there was a different path, right? So there are options, to any ability, right? Leah sitting here watching that picture that you put up of you winning a championship over in Dubai. I mean, that's amazing, right? That's way beyond, being out for a 10U rec league baseball game at, 6 p.m. on a Friday night, but knowing that when the kids leave that field, they got the best effort that I could give, and they walk away going, you know what, you called a pretty good game, even though they might not agree with everything, because 50% of the people hate you the minute you walk on the field, depending on what you're making. And Andrew, you probably have the same experience doing football games, but knowing that at the end of the day, when you walk away at the end of the night, if somebody just says, hey, you called a good game, I'll take that and walk away. And that means a ton in this day and age of folks not being able to, folks fall into their cars, all that other stuff. Yeah. Just put all that aside and realize you're really there for the kids.
Yeah. So speaking of Andrew, I'm curious, what's been like your best or favorite moment of being a referee? Is there one of those games that just stood out to you that you as a ref could really just smile about?
I think, to be honest with you, as much as I enjoy doing high school and the high school games, I think just being around the little kids, seeing they're so innocent, just the love for the game is it's pure and it's raw. So it's just to have an effect and be able to even teach them just a little part of the game, or just even just correcting them and telling them good play and helping them up, and just to see the smiles on their faces. That's what makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
Well, I'll ask the same question, I guess, to Patty too. So you have this program that is essentially training all these referees, but is there a highlight for you as part of being in that organization that is training these new up and coming referees, and maybe the excitement level that they have to be in a platform such as yours?
Absolutely. And I think the favorite part for me is once a certification is set, a training and a certification is set, and it could, be anywhere in America. And certainly I'm not the one who has the knowledge to be able to teach them, how to do all of this. We have, partners in every community that help us with that. But when I get to, stand up in front of, say, a room of anywhere from 10 to 25 veterans, and we also do offer our services to veterans' family members and also active duty, excuse me. And then we start with just going around the room to hear their stories. And that by far is my very, very favorite part. And it's jaw dropping to me. And then here I am, just in the presence of all of this greatness and these people giving us a chance to, teach them how to do something that will have such a huge impact on youth sports in America. And again, all in honor of my brother. I tear up at every single certification.
That's awesome. Steve, I'm going to punt this off to you and let you finish off with maybe our last question before we wrap up.
Well, a quick technical question. In terms of getting support to encourage veterans to become referees or umpires, have you had any success or been able to get any of the national organizations, American Legion, DAV, VFW, to take it on as one of their programs?
Steve, your question is so important. And Jordan, who I work with the most closely on our program anyway, it's shows like this or people like you that allow us to come on and speak to a broader audience about what we're doing to catch the eye, of someone who might be able to help us out. Because that is the toughest part, is to get connected with what we're doing. And in particular, veterans in transition that might be looking for, whatever the next opportunity is, and to be, become a part of a different brotherhood, sisterhood. That's a really important part of all of this.
And, I would just say this too, that, I think the one thing is we probably get, I would say 5 to 7 applications a day asking for a scholarship. And so the need is there. I mean, and the money's not necessarily there. So we do a lot of fundraising, and I would just laughed in the back of my mind thinking about Leah and Jason. Jerry Jones is going to hear from me shortly. All I want is $100,000. I just want $100,000, and that'll scholarship 100 veterans in the state of Texas to become sports officials. And I have a notion that he'll probably do it. And so that's my next fundraising project.
Well, this show will hit YouTube in about 48 hours. You can send him the link and say, we got millions of viewers from Veterans Voices who want to see your reaction. We'll report it on the next show.
I think Jerry'd be pretty effective at shaming his other owners into matching that.
There you go. That's the key. The NFL is a copycat league. And if Jerry does it, they'll do it in Houston too. And we don't get enough support from the major sports, from the NFL or Major League Baseball. And in the end, it really helps them by increasing the pipeline with really quality people. So Jerry's my target.
Well, hopefully this platform will be one that we can certainly push out to the atmosphere and see if he'll take a bite, or anybody that might be linked to him. So shameless plugs here for anybody that might have connections out there. Please have them tune into this episode of Veterans Voices specifically, and then we can do a follow-up show to see how we were able to get even more veterans tagged into professional refereeing, archery, and all of the above. This has been such a treat tonight, everyone. I'm super grateful for for our team here that came together to deliver this wonderful information. That ends our panel conversation for the evening. So I want to thank you all again for coming on. A little later, we will show you some resources to contact the organizations we featured on the show tonight. Right now, we will hear a veteran's voice, and this month, Stephen Burchick talks with F. David Coleman, Vice President of Officiating for the PAC-12 Conference. He is a veteran who has taken his career as a referee to the very top of the field.
Welcome. I'm Steve Burchick, correspondent with Veterans Voices. Our segment today is A Veteran's Voice, and our guest is David Coleman, Vice President Officiating with the PAC-12 Conference. Welcome, David.
Hello, how are you, Steve? Good to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Can you briefly describe your military experience, including any special training, tours, or the unit of record?
So I focused on getting an appointment, actually a nomination to West Point, and was successful in doing that. And in 1969, I went off to West Point and graduated in 1973. I went into the Adjutant General's Corps upon graduation because I had hurt my knee and had knee surgery, was disqualified from combat arms, but they were going to make me pay back those 4 years of education. So I went into the Adjutant General's Corps, Personnel Management, Administration, Human Resources. And then along the way, there's the football. I played intramural football at West Point. I was not big enough or fast enough to be on the Army team, but we played some pretty good intramurals, but you could only play for 2 years. And what I did was went to the intramural director, who was my boxing coach, and I asked him if I could get an exception and play some more. He said, "No, Coleman, you gotta either officiate or you gotta be a coach if you want to stay with the football intramural program." And before I could answer his question of what do you want to do, he made me an official. So that was my introduction to officiating. Got away from it, but then got back with it in the Army while I was on active duty, and it just kind of grew from there.
That's a great story. And it sounds like in a couple of those cases, you were the right person at the right time. So
exactly.
Congratulations. What was the transition like moving from human resources in companies in the private sector to college and professional sports?
Well, you know, I stayed involved with officiating. I need to let you know that, Steve, because that was what it was all about. And I was, when I came back from Germany and was assigned to the Pentagon, that was when I had really gotten busy with football officiating over in Germany, because the way that it worked over there was that the Department of Defense High School played college rules. There was German-American football that played NFL rules. So I was really, embedded in doing a lot of officiating pretty much year round. And when I got back to the DC area, I met Johnny Greer. Johnny Greer was the first African-American crew chief referee in the National Football League, and he lived in DC. He introduced me to the DC connection, I call them, all the folks in DC who were affiliated with football, and there were many from the NFL as well as college officials, and they kind of took me under their wing and helped me get involved in the high school association in DC, where I became a referee. And then I was picked up in Division III, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, and then got into the MEAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. After I retired from the Army, went back to Cleveland, got into the Mid-American Conference, was there for a year until my bad knees and bad hips took me off the field. But the NFL knew me. They had scouted me as an on-field official. And when they brought instant replay into the game in 1999, they offered me a position on the instant replay staff. And I was a video operator in instant replay for the NFL for 10 seasons. That worked out for me. And I came out of replay booth, went into the league office, and was there for 6 years. And then that brought me to the Pac-12, where I've been. This will be my 9th season coming up.
That's quite a transition, and once again, some heavy hitting facilities and organizations that you've been involved with.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite hobby or pastime?
Well, I like to relax by puttering around in the garden. You know, my wife and I have a small backyard, and we, you know, plant our vegetables and flowers and got our pots and things like that. That's relaxing. I play a little golf, but it's bad golf. I hit the ball lots of times, but I like to get out on the golf course and hit the ball around. You know, very important to me. One thing that the Army taught me was, and I mentioned, you know, the physical capabilities that one has to have. I've been able to maintain a pretty good regimen of activity. You know, got my daily dozen my exercises that I do. I don't run anymore, but I take walks. I take a walk 5-6 days a week. Got my step count that I want to get to and things like that. Try to eat right, and just take care of myself.
Do you see any parallels in the military world and the sports world?
Well, yes, and the biggest thing is the team. You know, in the military world, you know, we're a team. You know, in the Army, it's the squad, it's the platoon, it's the company, it's the battalion, it's the brigade, it's the division. You know, it's the corps, and there's leadership at each level. And in the sports world, it's about the team. And that's why I talk to student athletes in the Pac-12 when I go visit them during their summer practice and talk about rules and things. I ask them, what are you going to do when you finish playing? I mean, hopefully you'll play as long as you can. But do you think about coaching? Do you think about administration in sports? Have you thought about being an official?
Any advice for veterans on how to enter professional sports other than as a player?
Officials are needed. There's a serious shortage across all sports of officials because it's a commitment. It takes time to develop and to grow an officiating career. And you got to start at the lowest levels, you know, with the youth sports, and then the military sports that are going on, and then you get to junior high school. Hopefully you can get into small college, move up that ladder. And it's not easy because the commitment, the time that's necessary to study the rules and be excellent with the rules and the officiating mechanics takes a person with a lot, not only time to do it, but a desire to do it.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you. I hope I gave you what you needed. It's, you know, it's always fun to get with my Army buddies and military friends and associates and do things like this. So thanks for reaching out to me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We hope you've enjoyed our conversation tonight. We leave you with some resources if you found our conversation inspiring. Interested in adaptive archery? Find out more by reaching out to USA Archery at usarchery.org. Battlefields to Ballfields helps veterans find a new career as referees. Find them at battlefieldstoballfields.org. Protect the Game also helps veterans transition into referees. You can reach them at protectthegame.com. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of the American Legion in Danville. If you would like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate to Veterans Voices care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, so be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, July 10th at 7 p.m. We will be talking with veterans in the kitchen. You won't want to miss it. To all our veterans and their families, thank you for serving. So all of you who tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.